Favor recording.
Okay, this is the Bylaws and Ordinances Committee meeting of Monday, July 15th. And who's here?
Tom Butterworth,
Here.
Hillary Ormond here, Kimberly Norton here, Jennifer Zonas here, Maria Naughton here, Christina Ross here, Rita Bettino here, and Eric Tunham. Not
He's
here.
not.
We have a quorum.
How many is that?
1, 2, 7 out of 8.
Okay, I'd like to open the meeting with some comments. First of all, I apologize for some of the confusion and uncertainty at the last meeting. There were several members that just weren't ready to make a decision. And so we didn't sort of call the game as complete in 9 innings. However, since then, I have the impression that we do know exactly what we want to do tonight. So I'm going to take the rather unprecedented move of asking the town council members before we start to take a straw poll as to where they're coming out on the proposal to do the sidewalk ordinance, because I think you all deserve to know that information before you go to the trouble of standing up and speaking. You're still welcome to stand up and speak, but I'm going to give you the results first. So Jen's going to take a straw poll motion. This is not official because we want to give you guys, if you don't like the result of this straw poll, you'll still be able to do your comments as passionately as you'd like, but I think you'll enjoy having the
not as moved.
you know, it's a straw poll and you move as a straw poll of the council, what?
Okay. To move that we reject the proposal to revise town ordinance section 54-48 to require certain residential property owners to remove snow and ice from public sidewalks abutting their property.
I'll second that.
All in favor in a straw poll? Okay, it's unanimous. So I wanted you guys all to know that's where what the mood of the committee is. If you want to, it's unanimous. Deanna wants to speak first.
Sorry. Can I, do you mind if it's unanimous that we are not going to change the ordinance in any way? And I just want to go on record as saying that I was against doing that. I listened to the budget concerns and things like that, but I've been against changing the ordinance. And I voted against it last meeting. I'll let other people speak for themselves. But at this point, the committee is voting unanimously to leave the ordinance as it is, which leaves the town in charge of clearing the sidewalk.
Deanna?
So I just want to apologize to everyone who's here tonight, because at the last month's meeting, there was a vote where it went 6-2 that the Bylaws and Ordinance Committee was not going to take this agenda item up. And I was very clear at that meeting that the item was dead. So I'm not quite sure, and I'm very disappointed that everyone did not get that message and it was put on the agenda again. When I'm a very big parliamentary procedure follower. When there's a vote and it goes against something, it's dead. I mean, that's government and that's how it works. And I was very clear that meeting. If you watch the tape, I said it was dead. So I'm sorry that you all got so upset about another meeting when we talked about it last month. So I just want everybody to understand, when I made this proposal, it's because we have a budgetary constraint and sidewalks are going to be an issue in the budget going forward. So people should know that, but this meeting shouldn't have happened this way. And so I am very disappointed in this coming back on the agenda this month after a vote was taken. And I'm sorry that, this isn't fair to you either. It's a summer and you don't want to be down here in the summer. I don't want to be here in the summer and not you. So.
John, I would just respond that as a chairman of the Board of Education, you were an excellent parliamentarian and leader. As first selectman, you're excellent, but this is the town council. And the town council committee made a decision and we've clarified the issue now. So let's not go back and look at the past. Let's move on with our agenda. Now, if people want to speak, Rich Demal, you'd be welcome to speak if you'd like.
What the effort to defend this thing's dead, right?
It's,
Correct.
it's effectively dead. Yeah, we haven't done we don't want to be presumptuous, so presumptuous as to do the final vote until people express their views, but I think it's clear that we do not intend as a town council to move ahead with this proposal.
Your views, or is it that?
Sure.
It's totally up to you.
It's your,
We're open
it's
to-
your decision.
Would you like to, would you like to speak and represent the whole as the
I
view?
represent 9 owners here.
That's
Park
all
Slope.
We'd love to hear it.
It's not a whole.
Okay, maybe.
By the way,
Hi, could you come up to the microphone, please? Thank you.
So good evening. My name's Rich Jamal. I live at 219 Park Street. I'm president of the Park Slope, a condominium community that's located on Park Street between 197 and 2. Is the mic working or not?
Well, it's working for Zoom. Can you turn the mic up for the audience, maybe?
Sorry, I thought there was a microphone.
No, you're fine.
Sorry, what?
Try it.
Joe, would you be
Try it.
offended if we move the
Hello.
table a little bit so he could sit and face the audience instead of facing us?
Well,
Really do this.
so anyway, my name's Rich Jamal. I live at 219 Park Street. I'm president of Park Slope, condo community between 197 and 221 on Park Street. As you probably already know, Park Street is designated as an emergency response road, and therefore has enhanced, snow clearing in the winter. In addition, it's a primary access road for cars going to the high school and middle school complex and to the Merritt Parkway. Many New Canaan residents and their guests use Park Street to walk to train stations, Mead Park, and Town Center. And my neighbors tell me many of them move to Park Street specifically for its walkability to those town locations. Given the significance of Park Street to our town, the town's road crew continuously plows Park Street during snowstorms, which is actually good. However, there's no meaningful shoulder on Park Street, and the sidewalk is immediately adjacent to the road. So for us, that means that even though we pay to have our private service clear the sidewalk in front of our community, the sidewalk is covered with snow again and again as the town repeatedly pushes the snow from the street up onto the sidewalk. It's not feasible or affordable to require our association, for that matter, any homeowners on Park Street, to keep up with the frequency and volume of the town's efforts to keep the route safe for EMT, police, student drivers, school buses, and resident travel. By the way, you should be aware that the town's small snowplow that used to clear the sidewalk struggles to clear snow on Park Street because telephone poles have been installed in the center of the sidewalk for a significant portion of the street, which of course is not ADA compliant. Pedestrians using aids for mobility, dog walkers, and mothers with strollers struggle to use the sidewalk even in the best of weather. Of course, it's even more dangerous in the winter during snowstorms and after sunset when there's limited lighting. These pedestrians frequently must walk in the road traffic to get around the poles, a dangerous endeavor at best. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're taking notes? You want a copy?
I would love a copy. Would you like us to post it as an exhibit to our minutes?
You may.
Great. Thank
Who's
you.
next?
Stephen Einstein?
It's,
Is it Einstein? Or
it's Einstein or Einstein,
Oh, okay. Well,
but it is that famous name. So can everybody hear me? So I have very little to add to what Rich DeMull had indicated. I live in the same community at 203 Park Street here in New Canaan. The big issue I have here is one of safety. And I think, of course, I concur in your determination in terms of not moving forward with modification of this ordinance. However, I think it's important to underlie the most important significant function of municipal government is to provide for the safety of the populace. And the snow plowing, when done on Park Street or Mead Street, which feeds into Park Street, always pushes the snow onto the sidewalk. I had, until just recently, commuted to New York City every day. We would walk to the train station. I would have to walk on Park Street with oncoming traffic on icy roads. You could not walk on the sidewalk, especially during high snowfall. So I think it's important to understand that uniformity and consistency of the plan is important. Some folks even if they're not obligated, get out there with the shovels and clear the path. But it doesn't provide a clear path to the train station or into town, but most importantly for the commuters. And there are not dozens, but probably 100+ commuters that walk on that path, and they're endangered every time. So let's think about safety as well. And again, I very much appreciate your determination not to move forward on this ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Roy Abramowitz?
Good evening. Roy Abramowitz. I live up on Laurel Road. I oppose the change which you oppose to 5448. Now, I have no skin in the game other than being a taxpayer because I live on Laurel Road up in the northeast corner and nobody's ever building sidewalks there. But the problem that I have is the lack of transparency. You know, you have a referendum, okay? To go back on a referendum decision, which maybe the referendum would have passed if you said you're going to be responsible to shovel your own snow. So I think that was just not a good thing. It was a waste of everybody's time. Number two, when I hear that the reason for this is budget constraints, you know, when you have overruns up the wazoo and spend $4 or $5 million to our new movie theater, $40 million for a library, I could have built a Taj Mahal, and other overruns. I have a problem when you're telling the citizens of New Canaan who pay the taxes, governments do not have money. Governments have taxpayers' money. You have to spend it prudently. You cannot ask people, if they're seniors, to go out in the cold when there's wind and shovel snow, even if you build new sidewalks. I consider myself to be in pretty good health, okay? When I go out and shovel and it's cold and windy, I have a problem with breath, okay? And I could work out for 3 hours. So you're putting their health at risk. You cannot do that. And in this day and age, when everybody gets a trophy, it's not the good old days back in the old neighborhood where we're going to go shovel our neighbor's sidewalks, make a couple of bucks, or maybe just do it because we're good kids. So the town has to find, in my mind, different places to cut a budget and fulfill its obligation that it's said to pass a referendum to the people that are affected. Going forward, my stance would be, if you're going to make sidewalks in that area, you have to have the town take care of the removal of snow, especially people over 65, people with a medical condition, because it's the safety of everybody. That's my spiel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa Piankowski.
All have a good my anniversary.
Hi, I'm Teresa Pinkowski. I live on Old Studio Road. In an email I sent to town officials on Monday, February 14th, 2022, I forwarded an email sent by neighbors living on the sharp curve of Old Stamford Road dated October 3rd, 2021. They wrote, "We have engaged with the New Canaan Police Department and the Department of Public Works to come up with possible solutions to make this a safer road for both drivers and pedestrians. Having been among many recipients of their email, it was the beginning of my open opposition to a sidewalk on 106 for safety reasons and out of concern for homeowners like myself being burdened with maintenance and liability issues." To quote an email I sent the following day to town officials on Tuesday, February 15th, 2022, quote, "I was told that maintenance and liability would be the town's responsibility. However, there either are 19 miles of sidewalks or there will be 19 miles of sidewalks in New Canaan, and at some point the maintenance responsibility would be too expensive and may change to become a resident's responsibility. The Conservation Committee, particularly Chairman Chris Shipper, has continued to advocate for a green links to connect the parks. Town Council approved $300,000 of ARPA funding for Green Link sidewalks for the completion of Green Links. This allocation will be to complete a network of trails and sidewalks connecting all of our town parks together. The proposed sidewalk segment is on Old Stamford Road from Bristow Park to Gower Road. It is my position a sidewalk along the road will be unsafe for pedestrians, and the existence of the sidewalk will indicate a confidence on the part of its ability to provide safety to pedestrians. Personally, I object to the financial burden and liability that the sidewalk installation will cause in the event the town decides it cannot clear all the sidewalks, and the burden of snow and ice removal falls on the homeowner, who will then face liability and increased insurance expenses. Part of the plan of conservation and development is to recognize the need to provide housing choices for older population to stay in New Canaan, and the physical and financial hardship of clearing the snow and ice would make it more difficult for the elderly to stay in a home, including one near town with comparatively little property such as mine. Again, I wrote those comments on February 15th, 2022, over 2 years ago, based on conversations started after my neighbor's October 3rd, 2021 email. I question why town would continue to install more sidewalks while placing town at risk by only clearing some of them. On April 2nd, 2024, the Board of Selectmen voted unanimously to enter into a contract which entails the installation of new concrete sidewalks, granite curbing, and a parking pull-off along Old Stamford Road from Park Street to the Bristow Bird Sanctuary, with a $217,984 total project cost. Additional access is from Meads Park parking area with an improved, widened, paved path. If there is funding for restoration, improvements, and access to and parking for Bristow from both Mead Park and Route 106, there should be funding to maintain all sidewalks to town parks. If connecting town parks with a green link system is the goal, town should fund all sidewalk maintenance, including snow and ice removal. I'm including a hard copy of the emails that I referenced above. It has the email addresses of the people that were recipients from the neighbors around the curb, so you may not want to print people's email addresses, but I am forwarding it. So I'm giving you a hard copy.
Thank you.
And then you might want to block out people's email addresses.
Do you, just to be clear, we should post this as an exhibit?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the copy.
Thank you.
And I'll redact the email addresses before I post it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wes Lovey, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name.
I have long been counsel to take yes for an answer. I'll give you my thanks for your consideration and your service on the board and cede my time.
Thank you. Scott Mackel?
Is it Mackley?
Is it Mackley?
No,
I'm
it's
sorry. Oh, it's
Mackel, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So I can pretty much cross out 80% I was going to say. But I will make a couple comments sort of directed at the first Selectwoman's comments on the budget and the impact on future sidewalks would have on the budget. So, I mean, a town budget is created just like every budget at every corporation and household and nonprofit and everybody except the federal government that can print money to fund the priorities of the town. And it's pretty clear, and I applaud this committee, obviously, some of the comments at the last meeting where we need to go and, get some more information. And obviously you've collectively done that because, it's clear that the town in many ways has, said that a walkable town and sidewalks is a big priority for the town and what makes New Canaan special. So, I mean, the POCD, the P&Z board voted 9-0 in favor of making that a priority. I just pulled this from the library hosted event by an urban planning expert called Toward a More Walkable New Canaan that was sponsored by Plan of New Canaan, the New Canaan Conservation Commission, the New Canaan Community Foundation, New Canaan Library, the New Canaan Garden Club, New Canaan Land Trust, the Glass House, New Canaan Beautification League, and Grace Farms. So it's pretty clear there's a wide consensus in town that sidewalks and walkability is a priority. So that sort of, follow up on what Roy was saying. The citizens of the town has expressed their view that we need to make sidewalks a priority and we need to find room in our budget. So that means figuring something out, but the answer is not, oh, let's just cut sidewalks, because the town has spoken that that is a priority. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott, do you want me to post a copy of your comments? Or you-
all.
No worries, I just want to make sure that you're given the option. Chris Hussey.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Unlike most of you, I have history. I sat in the town council for 29 years. And one of the things that we voted on was this ordinance. And there was a lot of back and forth, who wanted it, who didn't. But what convinced us, which way would we go, to vote for the town to take the liability was the fact that, frankly, the community, the municipality is in far better condition financially than most homeowners to absorb that responsibility. But we were torn. We didn't know which way to go. We made a commitment. We made a promise. There would never be financial responsibility on the homeowners. I'm on Main Street. I was on Forest, which also has sidewalks. I would say, and I have an office attached to my home, probably 2 to maybe 3 dozen people from 5:30 in the morning until dark, and sometimes beyond dark, use those sidewalks. They're a wonderful asset, and we want to keep them. But when you think about the financial liability to the owner and the ability of the community, there's just no comparison. I know we want to extend our sidewalks, but is it right to penalize some to benefit others? It does not seem fair to me. And lastly, I think most important to me is we gave our word. We passed an ordinance, and I could be wrong, but I don't ever remember us overturning an ordinance. I would like you to think very carefully about this. I mean, I can't see myself at 84 years of age shoveling snow. I can see myself flat on the sidewalk. And many of my neighbors, and isn't it even a matter of age? It's dangerous. And I forgot this point because I didn't write any notes. There would certainly be, and I called my insurance agent, but didn't get an answer yet. There would certainly be, I would believe, a great increase in your property insurance because of that liability that the town is then imposing on you. So I asked you to think about this very, very carefully, weigh everything, and do what you think is right. And I also want to thank the first selectwoman for her explanation, because like so many, I didn't hear anything, but I'm happy to be here and happy to have this opportunity. And thank you for your service.
Thank you. Diane Hobbs.
I just wanted to say thank you for all of the past vision for a walkable community and support of all the past people in municipal government. And I thank you tonight for that continued support, and just concur and thank you, Gianna, for explaining everything. And you guys have a tough job, and I thank you. And we have a great town because a lot of volunteers work really hard to think about the future and make it a really incredible place to live. And tonight's another example of that. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm really bad at deciphering handwriting. The last name, it looks like is Shannon. Sorry if I can't read your first name. Starts with a
Susan?
Susan.
Okay.
Oh, okay. And Eloise Colletter.
No, I don't think I can speak. I think you would be here.
Oh, okay.
It's just attendance. Yeah.
Communications.
Okay.
Joe, is there anybody online that,
No one.
okay,
There are people online, but no one wants to speak.
all right. Oh, Betty.
Betty.
I promise to be short and sweet on this one. My name is Betty Lavastik. I live on Old Norwalk Road. Usually when something comes up in town, residents, regardless of party, reach out to me because I like to get involved in the community. And in this instance, one of the residents reached out to me to help spread the word. So I went to New Canaanite, New Canaan Advertiser, and the Sentinel to raise awareness. And I'm the person who reached out to Chris Hussey to come tonight, and I'm glad she did, because she eloquently said what many of us feel, that there was an ordinance, I was against the sidewalk, and I am not impacted in any way. I don't have a sidewalk on my property, but I am concerned when impacted residents don't know about these meetings and cannot speak. So Sunday night, when 95-degree humidity, I was out door to door trying to contact impacted neighbors to come here tonight. So I hope this ordinance does not get changed anytime down the road. It's unfair to the few residents, a handful of residents that are impacted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Or did I say, we couldn't be so presumptuous as to assume that we would know what you were going to say or that people wouldn't be influenced in a certain way. So the prior vote was a straw vote. I'd like to take the formal vote if you would propose it again.
Officially, I move that we reject the proposal to revise Town Ordinance Section 54-48 to require certain residential property owners to remove snow and ice from public sidewalks abutting their property.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Rita? Eric Tunham's not here, but he told me that he was agreeing with us also. That's a majority of the town council. So it's very low likelihood that this thing has got any life left in it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we should approve minutes, but we have a copy. Can we do it the next one?
I don't have.
I
was trying to get that done.
I know. I know. Next time we'll have it kind of, we'll have all the minutes in front of everybody. We'll email them in advance.
Well, I think, okay.
So it'll be on the agenda.
Like, I don't know that they signed anything, they were just copied on email. So, I mean, there's no record actually. I'm sure somebody will tell me that's wrong. I've broken a car, she got buried in jail, but that's what I feel comfortable with.
All right. And just in time. Now we get to the most controversial item on the agenda. Thank you.
Well, we really know how to clear a room, huh?
Yeah.
This tax abatement one?
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
So, as you know, New Canaan provides a number of benefits to volunteer firefighters and emergency medical technicians. I think they get discounted passes or free passes to the pool and a lot of different things. But one of the backbones of this, and it's authorized by state law, is a tax abatement that can run in the neighborhood of $2,000 a year. And there's an extensive ordinance around that. And it hasn't been reviewed for many years. And some people like Ann and Cheryl Jones have said it's time to review it. So we enlisted Nick Bamonte to take a look at it, and there were some questions raised. And all the questions seem to be resolved as not requiring a change to the amendment, but except for one. State law authorizes the tax abatement for retired volunteers to the eligibility of 25 years of volunteer service. But our ordinance, and I'm not sure any of us knows why, said 20 years. And so it's proposed that we correct that. But before we move to adopt that, Nick or Ann, do you have any comments that you want to make about this?
Anything on the, I don't have anything on the 20 to 25.
Well, go ahead, speak to the other issue.
Oh, the other issue? The other item we're looking for is actually change the process of how it's given out. So currently, people have to submit their tax bill, and then based on their tax bill, we do up to $2,000. What that does mainly for residents, if you have a mortgage company, it causes a lot of problems with your mortgage company in terms of we give $2,000, you've got a mortgage, we pay $2,000 off in your tax in the middle of tax season. The mortgage company already has your payment file.
Right.
They pay that full amount. Now there's a credit of $2,000 on your account. The mortgage company has to get refunded. And then the mortgage takes down the escrow on your, on the behind the scenes for your mortgage payment. And that gets adjusted. Then the next year they get the file. It's raised up again until they get to 2,000. And then they hit the taxpayer again with another escrow. So it's not fair to the person getting to go through that every single year. So the suggestion, or I would like to see if we could change that, we move the timeline up. So instead of a resident having to prove a tax bill, we just need certification from the tax assessor after the grand list is signed to say that they're on the grand list. We know their car, or we know their house, depending on which one that they're going to submit, that we know that that record is there, that that bill is going to come out in July. What we can do at that point is go in front of the Board of Selectmen as normal, say, here's who's going to get what dollar amount based on the bill, the item that they're getting, and we can then put that deduction on them ahead of time. It's mainly for the mortgage companies that's the problem. So for residents, I'd be looking to see if we could make that change if you're putting against your residential.
So in layperson's terms, what you mean is that the New Canaan tax assessor, we adjust the bill that is sent to them. So
Yeah, we can put a dollar
into
based
the-
exemption, whether assessor collect, we can put a dollar base exemption. So if you're putting against your real estate, we can put that $2,000 exemption against it before the bill comes out.
Right.
Which means if you have a mortgage, your mortgage company gets the lower amount and you don't have the
first-
consistent up and down.
And I have a question. Sounds like a good idea to streamline it, but what if the person, like, what's your timeline? When would you go to the tax assessor's office in case the person moves or something like that, and then you've got a new owner?
If they, excuse me, sorry, if they move, that's what would happen. It's kind of like the elderly, the program we have now for deductions on elderly programs. It's if they move, the assessor will go in, and when they change ownerships, they'll look to see the deductions. And if there's deductions on their account, they take it off and do what's called a certificate of change. The new owner is going to have to pay that difference at that point.
Okay, so there's no risk to the town not getting tax dollars from a new owner because the tax
No,
assessor will
they'll
adjust-
remove the exemption. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Nick, I think the question arises is, does this require a change to the ordinance? You want to address that?
The 20 to 25 years.
No,
Oh, this
no,
one.
Ann's point. Nick, did you hear me?
Oh, sorry, Tom. Yeah, I took a look at the ordinance, and what Ann is describing, I think she already has authority, or the town, should I say, has authority to tweak its internal process. The specific requirements for submission aren't laid out in the statutes. So, or I'm sorry, the ordinance. So in terms of a code change, I see that already being built in, that discretion. And it wouldn't require an actual code change to make the change that Ann is talking about. It's more of an internal policy.
You get the dollars right, we're good.
I have a question, Nick. Does it have to be consistent with the state statutes, or if we wanted to just, could it be 10 years? Or does it have to be 25 years?
Yeah, so
Wait a minute, is there any more on the escrow
No,
issue?
I can write up the process and share it with the
Right.
committee to see what you think of it.
Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, okay, now we can shift to
Okay, thank you.
the question of 20 or 25 years. Nick?
So all municipal power stems from state law. And the enabling statute here, 1281 W or X, one of those, says 25 years. So like Tom said earlier, I'm not sure how 20 made it in there initially. Can we go 20? That begs a question of, did the state, in lawyer speak, try to preempt the field here? And really where I've seen this sort of express allowance, the state is saying, yes, municipality, you can give this sort of benefit after 25 years of service. So, I mean, I'm reading that as no, we should stick to the 25. That's the expressly authorized amount to then render the benefit to these retired folks. So my opinion is we should be consistent with the statute.
And do they have to be retired, or could it be like if they were actively in those 25 years and they were going into year 26, could they still get the tax abatement, or do we have to have the word retired?
The ordinance currently contemplates active members in addition to those who are retired with 25 years or more of active service. So the way the code reads right now is that active members are eligible for these benefits, or retired members who have accrued, well, 20 years is what the code currently says.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Nick, could you tell me, will anyone lose the benefit if we change it from 20 to 25?
Someone who's already, no, I mean, we can't go back in time and say, oh, well, the code said 20 back then and now we changed it to 25, so you owe us another 5 years of service. No, whoever's met the 20 years has the benefit.
Okay.
And so just to repeat what, forgive me for being repetitive, but there's two ways to get the tax abatement. Either to be an active volunteer performing those services full-time, and there are other certification requirements, being in good standing, et cetera. So you can get it that way, but after you've retired, there's another avenue to get it. Even though you're not working, if you've had 25 years of service, you can then enjoy the benefit at that point.
I didn't realize that from reading it. I thought, so
Well,
active
this is
members.
only meant to address the retired situation, not the active situation.
Got it. Thank you.
So basically, all this proposal does is take the references to 20 in the eligibility requirements of the ordinance and change it to 25 to conform to state law. I can read it if you'd like. Resolved that the definition of eligible resident in New Canaan Town Ordinance, Chapter 57, Article 7, Volunteer Tax Credit, Section 57-23 be amended by replacing the number 20 with a number 25 each place it appears in such definition.
Now, Tom, one more thing. When we created this ordinance, I recall that if the volunteer lived out of town, as for the fire department, how would we make that adjustment?
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry, you're saying for anyone right now doing
If they did it in Norwalk.
Yeah,
Oh, in the normal, we can't do that. It's gonna stay, when I write the process.
okay,
It's gonna stay that they have to submit their bill,
okay.
and then we'll reimburse them. We'll reimburse the town and they
So
can do
there's an
it.
exemption. That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, because we can't,
Yes.
we do a direct payment in now. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted that included.
Oh, yeah, no, I'll write it up and you can
Okay.
edit whatever way you see
Good.
fit to it.
Okay, thank you.
So does that mean that they pay Norwalk? I'm confused.
They get a test.
The person gets a check.
No,
Okay.
the town.
The town will get the check, but
The town,
that's an
right.
option I may put in though, putting
Got
in the person.
Okay.
Because if they're putting against their mortgage, they're gonna have the same problem.
Right.
So you're right, in terms of putting it possibly with the person, once they can prove they have a bill.
Is there something, is there a legal impetus why not to give each of the volunteers a qualify, just to check, rather than doing the property?
It's income. It's income.
I could answer that.
Income.
Yeah.
So the enabling state law still sets out the same abatement process as Ann is used to applying, which is based on a percentage of the assessment and the mill rate. So it's the same language that's carried over to this enabling state law that lets us do this.
Got it. Thank you, Nick.
All right, do I have a motion to adopt this?
Wait, I still have a.
Oh, I'm sorry.
comment. Do we know, not, sorry, not for you. Do we know why the 20 years was put in there in the first place? Maybe it was a discussion back then. I mean, I feel like it's such a, unless it's illegal to have it be at 20, I feel like leave it at 20.
Except our lawyer is saying, he's advising us that it's, I mean, I don't think it's subjective. I think he's giving us good legal advice, so we should, like, I'm
But
inclined
that's
to.
what I mean.
He's the expert.
Is it in
so.
statute somewhere where you can't do?
No, but we've
20?
already kind of talked about that. And so it's, yes, it seems like it is possible, but if our lawyer is telling us it's like advisable to do it, I personally humbly wouldn't challenge that.
The way this, I'm sorry.
I do recall when this ordinance was put in place and Russ Kynes made the suggestion with the police chief, not police, the fire chief, and then they instituted, so there was a handout as to what it should be. And
I think
Steve
that was
Carl
the one
sharing.
for active. That was the tax credit for active members. This is a tax credit for retired. That was the difference because we were on that together.
Well, aren't they
Tax-
both together? Aren't they both the same?
No, because there's no amount of service needed for the active. It's just you're active, you get the credit.
Okay.
So technically you could be a volunteer for 20 years and retire, and then you have to wait 5, or you don't ever get that
Once
credit
you're
again.
retired.
You have to actually go the
You
20,
have to have been 25. I think.
25 years. So someone who's been in there 21 years, I don't know. I just
I
feel
know
like.
it's uncomfortable that it's awkward to discover this as a problem, but
If
the-
you're
the way
1 year
state
away
law-
from it, now you don't get it at all
But-
because.
But
The way this-
going forward, it's not.
But if you're at year 19 and you think you're
do you want
retiring.
to address
at
how many
20,
people are disadvantaged by this change?
Oh, I don't have all the dates.
The fire.
Yeah,
department,
but as
yeah.
Nick had said, our ordinance is based on the fact that the state gives us the ability and the state is setting the terms. We're not in line with the terms, so that is the problem. So
I
we
get
can't-
that, but nobody's said anything. I mean,
Yeah.
is there a penalty for it? Like, I get it, we should take our council's advice, but
We shouldn't.
we've had 20, so what was?
We weren't in compliance. At least, so as long as it's been in place, we weren't in compliance, so.
So is it an accounting, tax?
So it's not a
Issue.
tax or accounting, it's being compliant with what the state law has allowed us. They give us the ability, and then we have to enact to the ordinance underneath each governing body, town. And ours is just bringing it back to compliance.
We have a general policy in the town, and I don't know what other policy would be even feasible, that we follow state law. I mean, yes, we could become a renegade community, but
Well,
we've chosen not to
I
do
mean,
that.
How long has it been like this? I'm wondering.
Doesn't matter.
If it was illegal, would it have, maybe it's not illegal, that's my point. I get it, it says 25 or more. But do we have to, is there a law somewhere that says you cannot do it if it's under 25?
No, but the law says.
That's not how the law works.
Right.
So do we actually have to vote on this then? I mean, if this is just following,
I think it makes good practice for the ordinances to read in a manner consistent with state law. It's good practice. State law would override it. We could put 12 in here and the rule would still be 25 because that's what the state law says. So, but let's make it consistent with statute.
Rita has her hand up.
Rita,
I was just curious if the law had changed or if it always had been 25 and the town council purposely chose 20 versus the 25, or was there like a change and it used to be 20 and we just didn't catch up?
Good question, Rita. I actually looked at the legislative history briefly, and when the law was initially passed, there wasn't a a year requirement. That was subsequently added in, the 25-year requirement. So it is possible that that 25-year aspect of the enabling state law didn't exist at the time that we initially contemplated this.
So we may have just arbitrarily picked 20 and then they established 25.
Yeah.
Yeah. That seems the likely thing.
Yeah.
Right? Does someone like to make a motion to adopt this language?
So moved.
Thank you, Christine. Second,
I'll second it.
Kimberly, all in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. And thank you, Nick. I want to give Nick the stage right now. There's been off and on a discussion for many years about whether limitations on the use of our public spaces, in particular our parks, can be limited to town residents. And I wanted, and we, right now, we have ordinances that say that they are limited to town residents. And the question for Nick is that consistent with state law? In this case, I think it's court case law. And if we're not consistent, what do we do about it? We're not going to make any decisions on this broad topic. It'll take some additional homework, but we thought we'd get a start.
Thanks, Tom. So again, Nicholas Pomonti, Town Attorney's Office. Yes, the law has changed since we first passed some of our ordinances back in the 60s, which do restrict access to some of our public and recreational facilities to residents only, and that you would need to, in some instances, receive a permit from the town for things like a demonstration in a street. I lump streets and parks sort of together because in the eyes of the law, they are these public forums, which means First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of expression is a public right in these locations. And most recently, Tom referred to a court case that's actually a Connecticut Supreme Court case, which, I mean, I could talk about this for an hour. It's pretty fascinating to me. There's all sorts of different ways to analyze First Amendment rights. But basically, what this court case said, it was against the town of Greenwich back in 2009, I think the decision came out. And what the Supreme Court did there, Greenwich had a regulation that said essentially that only residents could access its beaches. And the Supreme Court, well, multiple courts until it made it up to the Supreme Court, took a look at the case and the facts and the law, both the federal law and our state constitution. And under the pretty complicated federal traditional versus public forum analysis, the court found that no, you cannot have that sort of restriction, i.e. a municipality cannot require, cannot prohibit, should I say, non-residents from accessing its public facilities. It went on to say that under Connecticut's constitution, lo and behold, our state's own right to speech and freedom of expression is an even more robust right than the federal constitution. So under both a federal law analysis and our state law analysis, the bottom line is municipalities in Connecticut can't prohibit non-residents from accessing their public facilities. I did a somewhat cursory search through our code. I think there probably are a handful of sections that could use some modification, perhaps, that would bring us a little bit more in line with the current state of the law. I don't know that that's how the town is actually administering the process for its public facilities, but that is the state of the law. And similar to our earlier discussion, it would probably make sense for our code to line up with what the law actually says.
Well, Jeff Holland, town resident, wasn't able to join us tonight, but he forwarded an article from many years ago, well, not so many, maybe 10 years ago, where there was a debate about if we took the step of saying that non-residents could use Waveney, for instance, and that was clear in the ordinance, what would happen with the swimming pool? Did you recall that issue? I think that the debate was, well, they can use the park, but we don't want them to use the pool. And I'm not sure if that ever got resolved. We can look into that and come back to it in future meeting.
We have non-resident passes.
We have none.
We do?
Yeah.
For the pool,
Yes.
great. So that's not an issue.
And it's
But they're,
fine.
but they're limited. They're
So you
limited
pay
to
a
1,000.
fee
So it's a
Well,
limitation.
because
To use parks, because that's what
Yeah.
Greenwich does.
And that's no different than Westport and their beach passes. I mean, everyone has access, but there's a differential.
Even with the dog park, there's still access, but there's a different fee schedule.
So we're not aware that in practice, there are any problems? Is that what we're saying?
Well, I have to say, like, the paddle courts, there's no non-resident fees.
Okay.
It's only residents can use the paddle courts, but you can go as a guest, so maybe that works. You go as a guest and you pay money and you're not, I don't know, that works.
I think it's important that we identify
Mhm.
any of these restrictions that may exist.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just speaking off the cuff here, and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, there might be a difference between recreational facilities and parks and parkland and open space. So I think even if a paddle court exists in a park,
Yeah.
it can be restricted somewhat, particularly given the nature of its use. So like the pool, I think can accommodate a certain number of non-resident passes, right? But I don't know that the First Amendment necessarily would give non-residents the right to all recreational facilities, is my point. And that's certainly something that I'm sure Nick will look at. I understand lumping streets and parks together, that makes perfect sense. But I do think there's a difference here.
Nick, is there a difference between parks and park buildings? Or town-owned buildings?
I think so, yes. Because it comes to this concept of, I mean, I think my best answer for now, I don't want to go too deep because I just don't know enough about what we do and what we don't do. I think to Hillary's point, there is a level of authority that the town maintains to regulate the public health, safety, and welfare. So like in the pool situation, we're talking about maximum capacities. If there's, Christina, to your question, if there's like a building in a park that's open to residents for XYZ uses, then that may be something for us to think about, also allowing to non-residents. I mean, it seems like in these areas that are being used for, or could be used for, public getting together and sharing ideas, it's pretty much what it comes down to, then we can't restrict that just to residents.
Rita?
Yeah, is there any reference to equal access, or is it allowable to, as we stated before, have different fee structures for residents versus non-residents? Is that an issue?
It's not an issue that I've seen challenged successfully yet. I don't know. I mean, the fee brings up a couple questions. I know several of the towns that I represent, and I know of several other municipalities that have those sorts of fee schedules in place, but yeah, whether that's, I mean, arguably there's a couple different ways that could be interpreted.
I mean, just not to go deep on this, but just like Rita, in the public sphere, if you want to kind of go back and read a lot of Connecticut Mirror articles, I mean, it's percolating in terms of like Westport beaches and Greenwich. Like there are activists who are interested in that. I don't think we have to have eyes on that now, but your issue, I don't think it's been resolved.
Yeah, it's not unique to just even, it's all over. It's California, it's New Jersey, there's a lot of states dealing with this.
Can I ask a question? I just, did something, like, how did this come right now to our attention? If you were citing a case from 2008, like, was something brought to our attention now?
Jeff Holland, a local resident, has been trying to badger the town council to look at this for over 10 years. And so I first heard about it from him, and I've heard about it from him several times, and it's taken us a few years to get to it.
It's in the emails. I asked that question. I think that's a great question. And then Tom forwarded it, and it was the whole town council. So it's all in there, the history.
Thanks.
I'm wondering if it makes sense, Deanna, if somebody on your staff might, take the lead on identifying any possible restrictions that we have in practice. I mean, there might not be very many.
I mean, I would, Nick, I think, a park land is very, clear. And we already let non-residents use our parks, grass areas, walking paths without any incident. I think we're maybe creating more work than is necessary. I do believe, and Nick, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, that our tennis courts, our pool, our everything else, if we want to allow access, because we as taxpayers pay for those assets. Other residents of other communities, like the beach is different, like the Westport thing, those are different because those are just naturally occurring spaces,
And
like our parks.
Beaches are, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but that has been, the beach
Yes.
issue has been
Yes.
litigated a
Yes.
lot
Yes.
all over. And
Yes.
so it's really about access to beach.
But I would
But yeah.
not want to go to the point of saying, our tennis courts and our paddle courts are fully utilized by residents and they pay a fee in addition to paying taxes.
Yeah.
I do not think that as a town, we want to go down the road of saying we have to open that up to non-residents when they're being fully utilized and maintained at great expense to the town, to outside residents. I think that we are going down a very slippery slope with, we've already had residents, complaining at the library, they don't get access to programming because non-residents are in there. So I do not want to go down the road of, having to have equal access to tennis court passes to non-residents.
No.
If,
I don't think that's what we're saying.
well,
I don't think that's legally required.
I don't
and
think so
Nick can-
either.
Nick can
I think we're just
articulate
talking
that.
about it.
But but I think to the extent we do have an ordinance that says our parks are limited to non-residents, that should be amended because it's just not right. But I think to Nick's point where you bring up health, safety and welfare, that's what abridges all constitutional rights is that that's why we have criminal laws. Like that's why we have health and safety laws. That's why we have these regulations. And so to the extent that there is a capacity issue, it makes total sense that we would be able to limit, and it's not equal access to anybody who wants to. If it's open space, that's a different story. And we're not gonna have somebody checking IDs at the front of Waveney. I mean, it's just not. But, I think these were passed a long time ago under different circumstances and we should amend them, but not go too far in the weeds because I don't think it's legally necessary.
because quite frankly, I understand the email, but I see lots of Darien residents walking in our parks. I see lots of Darien residents walking, utilizing our open spaces. So it feels like
Solution in search of a problem?
yeah, exactly. You and I were on the same wavelength.
Well, we have an ordinance, so everybody remembers this, we have an ordinance that says on its face, the use of parks shall be restricted to New Canaan residents or property owners or their guests. That was written in 1968.
Yeah.
I hope nobody's proposing that it's a good idea to have ordinances that are inconsistent with what we're really doing and with the state Supreme Court.
No.
So we're gonna have to change at least one ordinance.
Or remove it,
It sounds like,
or just remove it.
yeah, no, that would be one approach, absolutely. But it sounds like there's a theory that we could apply other than the fact that we don't want to hurt residents. In addition to that, the theory seems to be that the Supreme Court is basing its judgment on freedom of expression issues. And do people make speeches on tennis courts?
No, they don't. Exactly. So I can rein that in and Deanna.
If I lose, it has some pretty choice words in it.
Yeah,
too.
no, so this right that the Connecticut Supreme Court said is absolute in certain instances, really turns on, Tom, what you just said, this freedom of expression. So where are people going to be, not necessarily having speeches, but where can you fit a little assembly or a little, it doesn't have to be like 50 people. It could just be, 5, 10 people, whatever, but that isn't something that's typically or customarily done. I mean, yes, chit chat along the pool side, but there's no demonstrations that we typically see in a pool. There's no one, doing a rally signs around the tennis courts. So, I mean, I would be comfortable arguing that, yes, we still can put guardrails on those types of facilities. But again, things more like parks, beaches, streets, these real broad brush sort of public spaces that it would be hard not to think about as a public space. That's where this right really lies.
Yeah, and so I think the only question that comes up then for me is our permitting structure for allowing gatherings and assemblies at parks. And specifically Irwin comes to mind because there was a coalition of homeowners that wanted to meet there on a Sunday, and the permit that they were given was limited to a very small number of people relative to the size of the park. So the only follow-up question I would have is whether our permitting structure for use of the parks for this very specific First Amendment assemblage, speech, gathering, whatever you want to call it, it comports with the law. And it might be that there's a deed restriction in Irwin that's unconstitutional. I don't know why the permit for Irwin in particular is seen so limited to the number of people. But that might be something to consider as under the umbrella of park and open space when you talk about actually assembling people.
Sounds like there's a question of, it's a legitimate question, and how do you balance public safety, space management, health and welfare, natural resources with freedom of speech? And I don't know if there are familiar mechanisms what could we do to prevent that problem? Maybe it was just a matter of administrative discretion, but what guidance would you?
It might be.
What guidance would you give the administrator in that situation?
Do you guys mind if we open the doors? It's feeling a little stuffy.
I mean, if
We close them for noise, but I'm guessing our assembly has left.
Was it something over 50 people in Irwin? Because we do have strict restrictions over any even for residents of assemblies over 50 people.
I don't remember if
It was a request for more than 50. It was an unlimited.
It comes in, a resident has the same restrictions.
Okay.
But that's not legal.
That's what I'm asking, is if the 50.
Yeah, for health and safety, I would imagine, I mean, Nick, you can weigh in, but I would imagine because there's over 50 people, it's a health and safety management of town property.
Is that written down anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that wants to have an event have to come to Tucker, over 50 people.
But is it written down for residents to read? Like, I don't think it's in the ordinance. It just says permitting.
Yeah, it's permitting because you have to get a park permit. I mean, any park growing up, if you wanted to use park facilities in the town I grew up in, you had to get a permit to use the shelter.
And I'm not disputing that the propriety of that, which I think is totally makes sense. I'm just wondering, is the 50, it seems like there's a 50 limit, or you have to get a permit if it's more than 50 at either Irwin or Waveney, and Waveney is however many times larger than Irwin.
It's anywhere. Actually, caffeine incorporators had to get a permit to use downtown facilities because, again, when you have certain size gatherings, there are health and safety concerns, and you need to notify the police. The fire department needs to be aware there's going to be an assembly of a certain size. I mean, it's for health and safety.
Yeah,
but if I may. There are two questions. If you're under 50, you don't need a permit, but if you're going to be over 50, you need a permit. But it is my understanding that the group was denied going over 50. And
why was that?
Exactly.
We should know why.
I heard it was traffic and safety.
If you're going to go over 50, then there should be some some guidance as to getting the police or the firemen or whatever. But it is open space, so you would be denying a group attending a park because of a number, and I don't see how that's legal.
I
Well,
think that's legal. I think, but anyway.
Again, I think what a solution here might be is taking a look at the code for sections that expressly prohibit non-residents in certain situations. And if that would make sense, if that fits into this category that the law protects. So that would be for someone to flag, maybe it's my office, and then my office to assess which provisions should probably just be stricken. I think that is the easiest way. And then it sounds like we also have a policy for special events that folks, both residents and non-residents, would be able to follow for purposes of special events on parks or town property. So I would want to take a look at what that policy says so that we're not in effect preventing folks from exercising this right. But that all being said, it still gets checked with these public health and safety responsibilities that the town has. So I'm not saying that permitting for these types of uses is illegal. We just have to apply the same process to residents and non-residents alike.
So I have two more questions. One, I would assume that this does not apply to the land trust properties, or does it?
They have to get a permit for.
Yeah.
events of 50.
Right, but what about the number? Can out-of-towners trespass on land trust properties just like they can do on parks?
Stopping them, I don't know.
Land trust properties are not owned by the town.
Okay, and then with regards to the ordinance, do we have any rules as to no encampment or no littering or the parks closed at a certain time? Okay, so that's.
Well, these are the examples I have. There may be others, but we do have a loitering prohibition. And I think,
Want to keep that.
yeah, no person shall loiter or loaf. Yeah, so it is what it is, but I think the question is how it's applied. You know, if somebody wants a permit to have a demonstration of some kind on a sidewalk in front of the movie theater, you know, do you tell them no because you would be loitering, you know, but maybe we don't apply it that way. I'm not sure it's defective on its face, but you know, how do you prohibit freedom of expression using that?
Right, and can we just, Nick, when you're looking at all this too, town streets, because I'm just thinking in the back of my head, like a couple of years back, there was the Black Lives Matter down South Avenue, you know, permit, and the town has, you know, I'll have to look up the rules for that. Do they need to be?
Yeah, there's insurance
Yeah.
requirement.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's stuff to protect the town from liability because using town assets brings a liability on the town. And so if people are going to use them in larger groupings, then there's an insurance and we have to be, for any event, we have to be named as an additional insured.
So I was just bringing it up because as you were mentioning the things that you were going to look into, and it was like park and, you know, buildings and facilities, like streets and street closures. Does that fall into?
Yeah, because caffeine and carburetors closed and they had to have a permit.
Yeah.
They had to take out insurance, there was a permit to be able to close those streets. You know, I mean, there's a process and it's working well.
But
Yeah,
presumably
no, I
you
don't-
could deny them if there could have been, okay.
Yes.
I guess my question is, and I don't know if Caffeine and Carburetors makes money off of their events, but is there some way to restrict any money being made from public demonstrations by non-residents or residents so that it's more of a pure application of freedom of expression as opposed to someone selling T-shirts? And I mean, is there some way to prohibit it being money-making?
It's the loitering. So like the other day, I was walking down the street and there was someone selling cutting boards. for the benefit of a not-for-profit. But it was outside the stores. We have lots of stores in New Canaan that sell cutting boards. So, you know, it's really nice, but I was like, I'm pretty sure they don't have a permit to sell on the sidewalk. And they didn't, and that's not okay in this town.
So because I don't know the answer to this, do Girl Scouts get a permit to do it? I never thought about that.
Yeah.
I
believe
think
they
so.
do.
I think that. I think
Yes,
so.
they do, because they've been, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
Don't go after the Girl Scouts.
my daughters wanted to set up a lemonade stand in town, and I said, you have to go to Tucker and get a permit for that. And she wanted to
There's
do
so
something
many
else.
people there.
I know, but she asked, and I said, you've got, and she said, all right, make me an appointment with Tucker. But no, I think I think the permitting is it's legal to restrict it in that sense, to make sure that you have adequate parking, that you're not creating, you know, a police problem. And with Black Lives Matter, which was a huge demonstration, I know Fatu worked very closely with the chief of police to make sure she covered all the bases, but that was a huge undertaking to get it done and permitted. And it was done, I think, in a very good way.
Lots of out of town.
Yeah, you know.
So from everything I'm hearing, permitting is not a problem per se. It's a necessary function of municipal government. The question is, do we have any policies that we apply in the permitting process that systematically prevent freedom of speech? And that I'd like to just know what the policies are for issuing or denying permits. Just, it would be helpful to see that. I don't have any expectations that we'd have a problem with it, but the other issue is we haven't really gone through, and I don't know how much in this round we want to go through, but there are, you know, obstructing free passage on sidewalks, music playing prohibited. It could be that we want to hit most of the high level issues here and not all of them. I don't know if you guys would agree with that.
I agree.
It seems like
High level.
It seems like the park issue is pretty promising in terms of the residents, because if you take Waveney, for instance, you know, 99% of the acreage of Waveney is available for non-residents to give speeches. So for us to be defensive about the other 1% would seem to be a little obsessive. But a sidewalk, I don't know. So Nick, so based on this meeting, we'd be, you know, happy to see if you have any further thoughts and want to come back to us, or and look at I think we need to look at the language where non-resident use is expressly prohibited and find out the cleanest, most thoughtful way to amend that without unintended consequences. So I defer to you on that as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to look through the code for the glaring provisions that should be changed. And then, yeah, I'm also happy to look at whatever policy we have for these special events, just make sure everything's consistent. And yeah, I can report back to this subcommittee.
I just have one question, Nick, and the rest of the committee. If a non-resident wants to have a quote demonstration, does the town have to pay for the police and the security of that event so that it would be passed on to the taxpayer?
I don't believe so. That's part of, I mean, typically in the special events permitting process, like Deanna was describing before, I mean, we're not the only town that does that. Insurance obligations, indemnifications, and extra duty and traffic control measures where necessary. Those are, I mean, in my experience, the onus and fiscal responsibility is put on the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
Rita.
Yeah, just one more question, Nick. Is there a distinction between either a commercial and or a promotional event versus non-commercial or promotional? Is there any distinction there in terms of access?
I don't know what those words mean. I mean, does commercial mean you're making money, and promotion means you're hoping people will buy stuff from you in the future?
Yeah, basically. I mean, you could so I think of caffeine and carburetors, even though they're not charging money, they are benefiting. They're benefiting from that event. And again, I'm just curious. I don't have a dog in this hunt. I'm just curious.
I mean, I'm not sure on that, but I'll say on the commercial piece, at least, where I have seen other town policies for special events and special event application forms that are signed by the applicant. I've seen provisions where it says, you know, I certify that this is there's no commercial gain or direct commercial gain. So it's really like money exchanging hands type stuff that is prohibited in terms
Oh,
of
so
the,
there's a distinction with that, commercial.
yes, yeah,
Okay, at least with commercial, maybe not promotional, but
Right.
commercial.
right.
Just while you raise the issue, maybe this is a thought question, but does Caffeine and Carburetors have a First Amendment right to produce their event in Waveney Park?
No, I mean, we denied, I think Parks came to them and we denied it for June in Waveney.
Yeah, they wanted to have 3 events and we've
Yeah.
limited to 2. And for both events, they are now making contributions to not-for-profits. Waveney Park Conservancy for the event at Waveney and to be benefiting the community. And that's just a town, if you are a commercial entity and you want the town to be using, to use the town streets and you're not a not-for-profit, then there should be some benefit to the community at some level, because not everyone is getting that same access and benefit, so.
It doesn't sound like there's an issue there. I just was curious like I say, as a thought question, just for future reference.
Mhm.
Did you have a reaction to that, Nick? It's interesting because it's a real life example. I was just curious in that context. It would be interesting to.
And
think
there
about.
are, and even though there is money being changing hands, because there are entities that are on the premises that are making money during that event.
Yeah, you know,
I think
Tom,
couching
I'm
this in
not gonna
First
hazard
Amendment,
a
yeah.
guess there. On the
Yeah,
whole
okay.
commercial piece versus how that plays into your First Amendment rights, I would have to do a little more homework.
I'm not sure you need to.
Okay.
I mean, no, just to be clear too, there's no right, whether you want to commercial or altruistic or whatever you want to say. That is absolute. All of our rights can be restricted based on health, safety, and welfare. So the argument like that caffeine and carburetors, we deny them a permit, which permitting is to regulate
Right.
health, safety, and welfare, came back and said, but we have a First Amendment right to show cars, is not going to get you very far. I mean, we're allowed to, nothing is unfettered, nothing is completely unrestricted. And we all sort of live by this social contract of we're going to respect each other in our shared spaces and we're going to behave downtown and not, assault one another. I mean, this is all based on a social
And
contract.
I would assume
So
it
it's
by the
like,
same.
I don't think we need to get in the weeds too much about that. I mean, I think the question is valid, whether our permitting process is, is it totally discretionary? So we don't know what the basis is. I think that's a fair question, but I think the idea that we have to let anything and everything goes in our parks is a false one.
I think that's a good clarification. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So is there a fee for permits? I don't even know.
There's not, well, I have to ask Tucker, because
I think
she's
there
more
is.
intimately involved in the details. The fees come in the way of, you have to buy insurance, you have to.
I see. Because I
To
was.
break down a commercial entity like Zumbucks versus like the Vigil doesn't, like if you're a not-for-profit or if it's all.
I have to check,
Yeah.
because I'm not.
Yeah, and I was going to suggest that non-residents pay more for the permit, but that's just trying to make money for the sidewalk stand.
Just so you guys know, on this subject of commercial, there are numerous ordinances that address things like food trucks and, peddlers on the street. A lot of them look like they're written in the 1920s, but there are restrictions already. And if we wanted to look at those, we could. But I think that we're more concerned about situations that inherently have a freedom of expression angle, and selling pots and pans in front of the movie theater probably does not.
Do they use the word busker in that?
Things like that, yeah.
Well, peddler is actually one of those.
Well, I know peddlers in there. There is
But that's what I'm saying.
there's a peddler ordinance, yeah.
Is that people riding their bikes on the sidewalk? Or is that?
We
don't have to-
That would be a good one.
I'm not going there.
We're not gonna go there? I almost got hit by one the
All
other
right, so
day.
we'll continue the dialogue with Nick and we'll come back to this. I don't have anything scheduled for the rest of the summer. I wanted to know if that was okay.
For us or?
For the bylaws and ordinances committee.
Okay.
So
Good.
I understand though from Cheryl Jones and Tucker that there are a number of things that might be coming up in the fall. So enjoy your summer and we'll,
Can you give us some
I don't know.
spoiler
I
alert?
don't know.
Oh, okay, all right,
But I always trust Tucker, so.
okay.
All right,
Sounds
thank you,
good,
Nick.
Tom. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are you going to ask for a motion to adjourn?
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second?
Who-
All in favor?
Hold on. Who moved to adjourn?
Yeah.
Christina.
Who seconded? Okay, and all in favor?
26.
All in favor?
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.